The next question that I'm going to be looking at is advanced care planning. And this is one of those things that there's training available for you. You'll see again on Southnet and from Coawatia that you can do level 1 and to become a practitioner in this field. I think it's really good to do that training. It's good for you, I think, as a professional, but I think it's also helpful for you to understand what some of those cues might be when some of your clients or patients are expressing their concerns about what might happen to them at the end of their life. And sometimes that's a really tough call, and a lot of people don't want to go there because it's too hard. But the important thing is about having the conversation. And you'll see there's postcards available in most of the community teams, lots of different pictures on them about just suggesting that people should be having the conversation. And it's really about what's going to happen to me if I'm not able to tell the medical team looking after me what I want them to do. And this is obviously for people who are in a coma or unconscious or just not able to communicate for one reason or another. The conversation that I have with people about that is that it's something that I think we should all have in place. It doesn't matter what age we are or what illness we may or may not have. The youngest person I know with an advanced care plan is an 18-year-old who was getting his licence and ticked the donor box and then had a lovely conversation with his mum about what would happen if he had an awful accident. And she was really surprised at some of his things. So it's great to have that conversation at any time with people. There's literature available. There's a couple of these leaflets which are quite good. One's Advanced Care Planning, Preparing for End of Life, and this one is Making the Most of Your Final Years. My tendency is to go to people, have the conversation. I carry these with me. I can give them the leaflet and it kind of is a slow warm up to the idea for them, because you have to recognise it can be a very hard conversation to have. And then you can perhaps suggest that you might go back to them with this booklet, which is really quite comprehensive, but it does ask people to think about things that are going to make them perhaps a little bit sad, because they're going to be thinking about conversations or things that they might want to have done or have had before they die, people that they might want to think about putting things right with. And it takes you to kind of a quite interesting place. When you do your training, one of the things that you will do is do your own advanced care plan, and that's quite soul-searching. And I think we should all be prepared just to be a little bit upset and maybe shed a few tears when that happens. But it's an absolute privilege to sit with somebody and do their advanced care plan, especially when one of the things that you hope for with an advanced care plan is that it's going to involve the family. So you get the family on board as well, so that they all then understand what it is that mum, dad, husband, wife, son, daughter actually want. There can be a few surprises in that journey, but one of the things I found that it does is it actually brings families together, because it helps them to communicate about that thing that they may never have known was uppermost in their loved one's mind. Once the plan is done, and it can take an hour, it can take 8 weeks. It took me 8 weeks in one situation to do it with a gentleman, a very elderly gentleman, because he got very tired, and that's okay. You do this at the client's pace, and you capture this in their words. You're not writing down your interpretation of what they think. You write it in their words, and they have to be happy with it. They have to recognise themselves when they come to sign the document. Once they've done that and they're happy with it, you get their signature, you witness their signature, you witness it as a health professional, so it can't be witnessed by a member of their family. Then you can put it on Concerto and you can create a national warning alert. And that means that if that person is then taken unwell anywhere in New Zealand, the national alert will come up and the medical team treating them at that time will know that they have an advanced care plan, and they will look at that and they will try and follow that person's wishes if it's appropriate, and if that person is unable to communicate their wishes at that time. So it's quite an involved piece of work, but as I say, it's an enormous privilege, and the conversations that I've had with families after their loved one has passed in relation to these plans being in place is just so touching and so rewarding. If you have somebody that's interested in having an advanced care plan and you haven't done the training yourself, and I do recommend that you try and do the training. It's 2 days, it's very intense, it's very full on, but it's also very rewarding. Then there are facilitators available with the advanced care planning team, and they're available in the hospital, and they can again be found on Southnet. Okay, now we're looking at enduring power of attorney. Some people might have these in place already, and that's fabulous. But enduring powers of attorney are those things that we need to try and encourage people to put in place when they're mentally competent and able to appoint people that they trust to fulfil those purposes. There's 2 arms to an enduring power of attorney. There's a care and welfare, and there's a power of attorney that looks after somebody's property. It can be 2 different people. Sometimes it can be 1 person, and there is a need to actually go and sit with a lawyer, and there is a small cost involved. My advice when people are worried about the cost of putting an EPOA in effect is that actually this is a minor cost in comparison to what would happen if the person were to become unwell and there was nobody appointed, because then it has to go through the courts, and the cost for that and for sorting out their estate, sorting out their property, sorting out where they're going to live can be huge. So having an enduring power of attorney is a great thing to do. I've had some interesting experiences in people putting enduring powers of attorney in place. I have one lady who has enduring power of attorney who's in the Navy, and he's away at sea a month at a time. And there was a lot of dispute from the family about, well, it can't be him because he's away, we can't contact him. Of course he can be contacted by phone. Enduring people with powers of attorney can be overseas. It doesn't restrict them in any way. It just means that they're contactable at those times when their loved one may be in a situation where important decisions about their future, their welfare, their care need to be taken. And the important thing, the issue with it, is the trust that the person is invested in that person, knowing that they will make the best and the safest decisions in their interest. There's lots of information about enduring power of attorney that you can actually access on the internet, and I think if you're involved in working in this particular area, my suggestion is go and have a read through that so that you get that knowledge for yourselves. In terms of finding somebody who can put an EPOA, a lawyer that can work with you, the community law centres sometimes will give you advice. They're not always available to do the actual signing and the witnessing themselves, but they can certainly point you in the right direction. And there will be lawyers available that are able to assist, and they will always advise you about their cost up front. Public Trust is one place that you can go to, and they have a standard fee, as I think most legal firms would have. But if you ask about, there's leaflets available. Age Concern have some good handouts, some good leaflets available on EPOA if you want to look at those. If you ask the social workers in your team, hopefully they should have that information available for you. Yeah, that's a good thing to have in place. Family violence, and really my advice on that is that clinicians shouldn't actually ask questions about family violence because it's really difficult to know what to do if somebody gives you some information. So my advice there is that you watch out for cues, you watch out for things that are happening that are a little bit untoward, a bit unsettling. If you're overhearing things that are abusive in any way or hinting at neglect or danger for anybody in the home, or you actually see something happening or you hear something happening in an adjacent room, best recommendation is, obviously if it's something that's really quite dangerous to anybody, then you call 111 and get the police there as soon as possible. Your priority is not only to look after your client, it's also to protect yourself as well and act safely. And everybody would support you in doing that for yourself. But it's also about knowing what to do if you just got that niggling little feeling that something in the home when you were there isn't quite right. And for that, I think you should go and just find your friendly local social worker on site. Phone one if you can't find one, sit down with them, have a chat, talk to them about what you heard, what you saw, what you felt, and they'll help you to make a decision about what you do with that. So, for example, if it was something that was occurring to a child, and you need to do a report of concern to Child, Youth and Family, they'll help you do that. They'll help you locate the paperwork. It's all available on Southnet, and they'll help you if you need any assistance in putting together a report of concern and putting that through to Child, Youth and Family. My bottom line with any of this stuff that's in the area of family violence or neglect is, can you go home tonight and sleep if you've done nothing and you've got that in your head? So ask yourself that question if you're worried, if you're thinking, oh, yeah, I don't need to do anything about it. The other thing you need to remember that under the Crimes Amendment Act of 2011, there's a responsibility on you as a health professional to report any of those things that might be a key for anybody looking into family violence. And you can be prosecuted if you fail to report. So again, don't let that worry you too much, but be aware that there is an onus on you as a health professional to do the right thing.